What's the definition of green? It's just the color, or it's just the logo of the company. We should be really be able to define the green well, so that it is like okay, everyone understands that well, and even at the government level. And I think like we have these trademarks, fair trade, and organic certifications and all. So if we can influence the government to also come up with a green certification, so that set the criteria, set the indicators, so that whenever some companies try to get a green trademark logo in their company to get some benefits like tax rebate or inter subsidies or like export facilities and all. So when they get that stamp, it becomes easier for them to do the business. I think we have to also come up with a proper monitoring mechanism.
Consumer segments right now, not green product consumer, but in the consumer segment itself, it's very underdeveloped in terms of knowledge and rights and everything. And then you go into this, if you are to talk about the niche and nuance of green products and the potentiality of a big player just greenwashing their products as being green, while somebody ethical still is very disadvantaged by the underdeveloped supply chains, and their products cost too high in comparison to somebody who is greenwashing. In those senses, if there's not certifications again and standardizations again, it becomes very difficult for those to exist together with these big players, and the consumers to happily add more money for those kind of products that these smaller players might be producing, right? So one thing, of course, in these markets is money. You have to be able to compete with the money that a regular product is doing. And for example, for our bioplastic products, it's very challenging to compete against plastics because we are able to produce at a price that is maybe 10 times higher than what plastic is right now, right? And there's also taboo. And for recycled products, there's always a taboo that, it's secondhand, it's from somebody else. I don't know where it's come from. It might have come from a hospital plastic waste, right? And it's probably not sterilized. So now you're selling me this at a newer price of a newer product. You're calling it upcycling, and I have to pay more money for this. That's the consumer angle that we have to sort of deal with, and certification again.
Start by what is green. And so for us, how we define green, these are businesses that are environmentally friendly and sustainable. I'll give an example of what we call in community-based natural resource management is asset management. So for example, we can as well look at what you have around you. So what you have around me, and how can you take advantage of what you have to ensure that you also do business, because you cannot go outside your proximity to look at something else, but look within your communities and say. And mostly these are the ones that these are the assets for the community, and mostly these are the ones that you've actually kept or managed for a longer period as a generation or as a family or as a village. And so I would give an example of where I come from, in Lower Shirishikwawa. It floods every year. And so what they have observed is, if it floods, there is more salt that's coming from upland to their community. When you talk about green entrepreneurship, what they're doing is they're scraping off the salt from the soil, they're sieving it, and they're packaging it in a way that industry is now going to them to get the salt for industrial purposes. And so that's their green business. That's what they have in their locality that they are taking advantage of to do business employment. And then when you talked about the green or gray construction industry, would also, I think an example that I can share is in terms of bamboo. So in Malawi right now, they're planting trees, yes, but some people have thought of also planting bamboos because they're early maturing, other than trees. And for them, they harvest, export, make tiles from somewhere else, and then government then is able to actually get forex from there because it's a business. And for a business person, they're able to sell within Malawi the tiles, thereby also improving in terms of construction.
China has always been going ahead in the last 25 years. It is because they have been very active in building capacity, skilling their workers so that they can adapt technology very fast. And that's why their MSME industry has grown so much, and they have huge infrastructure capacity which they provide their industry at a large incentives that we cannot. Our cost of electricity, our cost of fuel is far it's much more expensive. But we have a advantage of a younger population, and that is where the potential lies, and that is where we can take an upper hand. As far as ESG is concerned, when we talk about green enterprises, green businesses, we tend to if I'm not wrong, talk about green products. But what we as an organization and part of the Fair Trade Network, we saying that we're not talking about sustainable or green products, we're talking about sustainable green businesses, which means that it is more than product. It is the entire business process. It is the ethics of the business. How are you setting up the business? Who are working for you? How inclusive, how diversity is being addressed, how transparent your business operations is, how accountable you are, how we are addressing the environmental concerns. So if you think of green enterprises in that, and there needs a lot of education, there needs a lot of awareness for the youth to get the right kind of motivation and right kind of idea of setting.
I'll first start with our government not defining anything as green yet. That's one of the problems with the investors also when it comes to looking at what you define yourself as and why does it pose a better advantage to anything else. So we lack in the policy side, we lack policies around circular economy as a whole. And because enterprises are just derivative of economies, it's difficult to then, define enterprises. And so that sort of takes away the advantage that you might have over other things and the recognition and everything. Also, there's a lack of credibility towards what you're doing, and that just adds to more problem of you trying to sell your things, right? And justifying the added value of being green. For example, so we work with developing biodegradable plastics in Nepal, and there is no certification of the bioplastics here, right? And the certifications we have to rely upon are the suppliers of the raw materials or something else. And it's very easy for somebody to overtake us, greenwash their product as being biodegradable. And then we who are looking at it in a more credible, ethical sense will fall behind, right? And in business, you don't want to fall behind the competition, of course. So that's the disadvantage that comes with not being able to label or certify your ethical product. Also, this is very prominent in the recycling industry. Very few of our plastics is being recycled, but the plastics that are being recycled do not have a label of the quality or what temperatures they melt at, what strength they pose. And these recycled small resins that come out in the remanufactured form, these cannot be picked up by industries very readily, right? Because for them, it would be difficult to justify what material they are using, if this is food grade, if they want a food grade, if it's a food grade. So there's no sort of science that has penetrated these difficult informal markets yet. You cannot find literature there. The literature that we have is like broader basketing of, this kind of plastic, this percentage of recycling, this kind of plastic, this percentage of recycling. But we do not go deeper into the market and economy side of things. So what our governments can potentially do is also look into those microeconomies of these green businesses and see and show how big the market is and is growing at and how potentially big it can be. That can be the guiding motivation for the youths also, as well as the investors.
In Malawi, what government is doing is to give soft loans. So unlike banks where they would have to charge interest, they're looking at what are the opportunities that we can get some funds from government give to the young people. We monitor their business, give them capacity, track, and then for them they're able to give back the money that they borrowed. So this is working. It's been working for the past 2-3 years, and government is also using that, of course, as a political tool to get youth to do businesses and improve their livelihood. When we look at how government then is employing youth, when you look at the employment rate versus the graduation rate of youth, you would find that government is failing to absorb youth. So you cannot just be staying with your paper at home. You need to strategize and look at what you can do based on the knowledge and skills that you've gotten from university or college. And then you look at the social enterprises that can be done with your skills to be able to have livelihood as a young person. A development partner, what we can do, I think, is to profile these young people who we know are in the communities and they have actually maybe developed skills and added value to their products. Let's profile them so that people can know where they are and reach out to them, create platforms for them so that they are able to come to spaces like these ones and share and sell their produce.
I have come up with this really interesting software called MRV, which company in Sweden, it's a company called Earth Bank, has been using it, and it's a forest conservation and climate smart farming company. So it's based in Sweden, but they are doing their work in Africa and in India, in Nagaland. Yeah. So what they do is they work with it's a private company, but they work with the government or the big landholders who have lots of lands, and take their lands and start planting, all the trees and all. And with their MRV software tool, they calculate, how much carbon emission that they have gained out of doing all their plantation, and they show it to the bankers, the climate fund, financing agencies, and earn the carbon credit. I came up with this company called the Horticulture Company in Nepal, which is doing a similar thing. So they have a really good nursery with themselves, and they have put a post on the Facebook saying anyone who has a land holding more than 150 ropenis or like this biga, we are ready to come to your land, do the plantations like of the fruits, of the vegetables, of different, and then we will do all the management of your land, and you will get the revenue. So I found it very interesting what these youth are doing. So because I see that in case of Nepal, it's either the smallholder land holder farmers or the big landholders who have most of them are in Kathmandu, but their lands are staying idle in their villages. So I see what these youth are doing was very interesting, but they're just doing from the business perspective and all. But what the Earth Bank have done, earning revenue by using the MRV software to earn the carbon credit, I don't think they have. These Nepalese entrepreneurs, fresh entrepreneurs, are not doing that and calculating and asking for that carbon fund. So I think these are the few things that we need to learn from north to south, and some learnings from south to north.
We also collaborate with the government department. For one of the department is the forest department. We are trying again when we talk about the green entrepreneurship and all. There is a huge waste material, dry waste material in the rural part of, in everywhere. It's everywhere. So we are trying to how that waste material can be can be changed in the value addition, and on how we can actually make the business again from the waste material. And for that, the pollution department and the forest department, we had a conversation and had a talk with them that can be, they can also support in that way, because when we talk about the waste material and all, what we will do with the waste if the government don't support in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the transportation and the value chain of the waste material. And there are example in Uttarakhand about the waste material. They are doing a huge work in the waste material, and the government is also collaborating and promoting and popularizing this kind of initiative, so that youth can come forward with the different idea and use this kind of initiative to popularize in the rural area.
Another thing is to make green entrepreneurship aspirational. For example, like being a doctor and an engineer and a chartered accountant is so aspirational. We have to make being a green entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur, being aspirational. There has to be community recognition. There has to be peer recognition that somebody is an entrepreneur and somebody is a green entrepreneur. That's even, something more to look up to. Our experience in working with the craft sector actually points us out that why would weaver's son will want to become a weaver until and unless it is both economically viable as well as it is aspirational. And how do you make it aspirational for them? This question is, I think this is where financial education is required. And there are examples in India where it has worked excellently well. If you look at Kudumshri in Kerala, it is the women who drive Kerala's economy, and Kudumshri is the livelihood project that is driving a state's economy. If you go anywhere in Kerala, you will see Kudumshri. You will see restaurants, hotels run by women, SHGs. So it is possible. It is possible. Women are very good with money if given the right kind of guidance. And I think mentorship is extremely important.
I have been working with youth and see the challenge they face, and because the challenge they are faced, I really understand, because I am also know from that age group and all, and my personal experience also. So I think what we do actually in our intervention and all, I mean, we encourage them. We also tell them that there is a scope. First of all, because some of them, I mean, most of the youth, they don't know, I mean, what to do and all. So we actually know, try to give them a demonstration kind of thing. We recently uh, develop a kind of community seed bank, which is led by again the youth, women and all, and tell them this could be one of the again, no, the business, or I mean, there is a huge demand of the local indigenous seed, but we are actually trying to promote this business for the youth to come and to see the knowledge, the traditional knowledge, how they can just have that traditional knowledge, and the conservation of the local traditional seeds, and that can be again one of the model for the green entrepreneurship.
How other startups, small startups like, can collaborate. For example, in the plastic recycling industry itself, we talk it in a very compact sense of recycling, but when you look at it, there are so many actors involved and so much policy that is going there, so many stakeholders that are involved. Everybody has a sort of an incentive to be in that ecosystem, and you have to maintain win-wins with everyone for that to work, right? So, for example, say DOCO works at the very upstream of our Blue Waste to Value. Naveen sir is here. Works at a very upstream side of collection as well, right? In recycling, usually a very informal market exists. We do not gain proper invoices. For example, if I'm buying plastic waste worth of 1,000 rupees, I only get invoice of 100 rupees, right? So I become informal myself as soon as I enter that market, right? And it's very difficult to work in an informal market because a lot of social capital is required there. It's not very data-based, and somebody to come into the market as a fairly new player who does not belong to that community, feels marginalized in that community, right? So that kind of piercing is really difficult unless the science is there, as I told earlier. If the science has sort of figured out what everything is out there and there's enough data for you to work it. In those cases, companies like DOCO can be the entry points for companies like Clean It Upcyclers later on, who work in only the value addition part, right? So DOCOs can be the Blue Waste to Values, can be the suppliers to these Clean It Upcyclers, or in between to those who are remanufacturing them into smaller pellets, and only these pellets get into more upcycled products later on. So you have to sort of build every step in that supply chain for it to work. And I think collaboration is the way to go. You cannot compete in green businesses yet. It's not mature enough for you to think of competition. And the sort of motivation should always be that you are looking forward to adding value to somebody else.
I think we have come to the end of the session. It was such a profound and very insightful session. Thank you for your valuable remarks, all the panelists who have traveled all the way from Africa to India, Mausamji, Samivji, and all distinguished participants in the floor.